Welcome to the workshop on loneliness from Sariel. My name is Tara Brusso-Snyder. I'm Executive Director of Sariel, and with me is Daniel Omalola. He's the Employment Specialist for Sariel. At Sariel, we offer case management counseling, employment services, peer support respite, the warm line, and we also have programs such as portable workshops and what you're at today. Wonderful workshops for stay at home. And we want to thank the Province of Manitoba for being able to provide the funding so that we are able to reach out to the community and provide them with some very valuable and important information or tools as we continue with COVID-19 and the lockdown. Daniel, maybe you might want to talk a little bit about what loneliness is now.
Yeah, I'd like to start by saying that everyone everywhere is built for connections, interactions, and relationships. That's what makes us human. If you take this out of our, league or zone, then we can't act right or act in a way that can support each other. So one thing we need to know is that we are built for connection, interaction, and relationship. And that leads us to know that we are designed to be interdependent on each other. No one is, created to be alone or to be independent of his environment, of their friends and families. We are created to contribute, to be part of something. And, and that's why this issue of COVID-19 is so hard on people, because it separates people from that community, from having that sense of belonging, which is why we are bringing this workshop today to help somebody out there to deal with loneliness and to help you to support somebody who you think might be, experiencing loneliness. Another thing that we need to understand is this fact that we thrive and become resilient when we are strongly connected. We do well together. Let me use that word. Yeah, we do well together. So isolation is a form of taking us apart, so that we are not connected, so that we don't thrive, so that we don't succeed as we ought to. Not that we don't succeed alone, but to the extent that we get connected to people, that's to the extent that we can easily thrive within, a common goal or in its setting. When we're talking about loneliness in Canada, here is becoming a social and public health issue, and that's why we need to really, really talk about it, especially if you are there at home right now. Just knowing that you are not alone and that somebody cares about you. Just that understanding can help you figure things out. And loneliness is not, contrary to what people think. They think that it's the older generation that experience loneliness or isolation. No, loneliness affects everyone of all ages, and we're going to see in some stats that we have together when we begin to look at how loneliness affects us. Sometimes loneliness is because of situations out of our control, just like we are experiencing our world today. Nobody knows that COVID-19 will be as spread as this, and as just continuing on. So it can affect everyone at any age, and it can be because of situations out of our control. And loneliness is a silent suffering, and that's why we are here today to talk about how we can handle loneliness. The good thing is this: we can all do something about loneliness. We can all support each other within our community, and we can start now.
Daniel, I was really glad that we received the funding from the Province of Manitoba Stay at Home so we could talk about this sort of thing, because it impacts Manitobans. And it's estimated that 1 out of 5 Manitobans, Canadians, will experience loneliness. And, that's significant. Mm-hmm. That is pre-COVID. And now here we are, we're not allowed to see anybody, we're not allowed to talk to anyone. And so we're all going to really go through some difficult and challenging times. Loneliness has a lot of impact on how we feel about things.
Mm-hmm.
It's so significant. For example, it's the same as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Wow.
And that impacts your health.
Mm-hmm.
It also impacts your health in other ways. It leads to cardiovascular disease. It leads to higher levels of chronic disease because you just don't feel good. And when you don't feel good, that's when other things start to happen. So it's also a big health problem, especially during COVID-19. So we have to be aware of that. Loneliness, it will lead to other factors, especially with mental health, such as depression, anxiety. It gives you time to think, it gives you time to worry about things, and all the factors that impact depression and anxiety impact loneliness. You're not living an active life, you're not getting out enough and seeing people, you're not having that interaction. Pre-COVID, England actually recognized how serious this was, and they established a ministry of loneliness. And so this has been with us for a while, but what we really, really need to look for in the pandemic is that this is rampant now, and we need to do something about it.
When I was looking at the stat, it's mind-boggling to know that 1 in 5, and that's pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So if you say 5 people, 1 out of them will be experiencing loneliness. And one thing that I realized is that we need to differentiate between isolation and loneliness, because sometimes it's okay to be alone, to have that time for yourself. And when we're talking about loneliness, we're not talking about being alone or being isolated alone. We're talking about the impact of not having the quality and quantity of relationship that you got to have because of different things, maybe by choice or because things are out of your control. So I want to actually quickly run through the definition of isolation and loneliness, and so that it can help us set the context so that we can discuss effectively. So social isolation is defined as a low quantity, look at it, quantity and quality of contact with other people. So it's not about how many people I see, it's the quality of the interaction that takes place. So that means you can be in a crowd of people and still feel lonely. You can still be in a family that loves you and still feel as if nobody cares about you. So it's the number of contacts we have, the sense of belonging that we feel. Do we have fulfilling relationships? Are we engaged with other people on their level? Do they understand us? Are we able to communicate well? Those are some things that feed into isolation. And it's the quality of network members that we have within us that we can easily access when things are going haywire for us. So if you don't know anything about isolation, just know that it's about quantity and quality of relationship with other people. So socially isolated people lack social contacts. They are, and if you lack social contacts, one thing is it's going to impact your role, and it's going to impact how you see yourself too, and it's going to impact whether you have a mutually rewarding relationships. And then, now we're going to look at the definition of loneliness, and I'll be able to tie the two together.
Yeah, I think one thing to recognize too with isolation is that we're also seeing it now in COVID. So, new mothers who are at home, they used to be able to go out and have the parent groups. They can't do that anymore. People who may be grieving, they don't have that sense of being able to have the funerals. People wanting to get married, they can't have the large groups. So isolation today means that you don't have that ability to reach out, and that can really impact your mental health as well.
A lot. Yeah. Especially let's look at the issue of even someone who just lost have a dying member of their family in the hospital and they can't visit.
I know.
That creates a memory that you can't forget. And sometimes if you are not careful, you have that tendency of blaming yourself, of accusing yourself, oh, I should have done more, I should have been there for them. But it is what it is in our world today. We just have to make the best out of it and move on. We've talked about isolation as the quantity and quality of contact with people that can lead to rewarding relationships. So when we get that sense of community, we are rewarded. There are some intricate rewards that go along with it. So loneliness then is our subjective reaction, and that's why it's so difficult to actually measure it, because it's subjective. So what makes somebody feel lonely might not be what makes other person feel lonely. So it is subjective. So loneliness then is individualistic measure of how the quantity or the quality of the relationship they have affects them. So is the unwelcome feeling of lack, of loss of companionship, which happens when there is a mismatch between the quantity and quality of the social relationships that we have and those that we want. So what that means is basically when you are feeling lonely, you might still have the crowd, but you might not be part of it. So the loneliness is the being a part, having a sense of belonging. That even if you are not there at that time, I still know that you're thinking of me. I still know that I have a place in your heart. And that is why it is subjective, because you can't control somebody else's reaction or how they feel about you. Or you can't, sometimes people express how they feel, but it might not do good justice to it. So when we talk about loneliness, then we are looking at your own or my own take on the quality of the people, on the quantity of the interaction that I'm having with them. And that can be a little bit tough sometimes, to bear. So when we look at the start and we look at the definition and how impactful isolation and loneliness can be, and the fact that we can have time to ourselves. You can isolate or withdraw from people to recuperate, re-energize, and then get back again. When loneliness happens, that we find it difficult to get back.
Right.
And I think that is the impact of loneliness, is the inability to get back. That can lead to a kind of downward spiral of things where we begin to feel more alone. That can lead to frustration, and that can impact our emotional well-being. Mm-hmm. Like you talked about before, that can create the environment where we feel more depressed, people feel anxious, and all those kind of things. Yeah, maybe you talk a little bit more about that, so that these people can have an understanding of.
So what loneliness does is it gives us that sense that we don't have any confidence because we can't belong. We're a being that needs to attach. Mm. And when we're not able to attach to others, we start to look internally, and it can get very, very frightening. So we start to actually make loneliness worse. Mm. Because we start saying, well, I can't do anything, I can't go out, I can't go anywhere. And it starts to impact, loneliness starts to increase because we build upon our own loneliness. Mm. And so, as you say, it's getting out there. It's like the Nike app, just doing it. No matter how lonely we are, we have to actually start reaching out and start doing those things that mm-hmm. we need to do, wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because loneliness can be temporal. It can be just for a limited time, and that's why you you see different ads by the government agencies talking to people and say, okay, let's get through this together. It's temporary. But at the same time, loneliness can become chronic when we now withdraw from people and go inside. Again, that is the word, going inside, and not reaching out. If I stay within myself and do not have that confidence to reach out to somebody, and because one of the research I read said people feel ashamed talking about loneliness.
They're very afraid to. Yes.
Yeah, so they don't admit it, and we try to cover up things. I guess that is a big problem too when we are looking at that can create that downward spiral, because for some reason people think people will judge them negatively, or people will not want to do anything with them, so they don't talk, they don't reach out.
Yeah, and it's hard today because when you reach out, you're having to reach out through Zoom or through Teams or on the telephone, and it's not the same as being present. And so you're missing that connection. So, one of the things we have to do is we have to actually try our very best, even though that's maybe not optimum, to still try and stay connected. Make those phone calls to people you care about every day. Try and find out what's going on in everyone's lives, and do it on a consistent basis, because that's where our attachment, that's where our connection will remain intact, and that's where we look after our mental health to be able to combat loneliness.
Yeah, because it has to like you saying, loneliness, then to deal with it, I think we need to redefine what social connection then means.
Yes.
In the context of COVID, to make sure that I might not be able to see you, but I still have you in my heart. I can still call you or text you. And even if it is 5 minutes, even if it is leaving a voicemail to say, okay, I'm still alive somewhere, I'm here, and I'm sure you are good. Call me back when you have the time. Those little things can help us deal with it. So if people are scared of maybe they are so concerned about your well-being, but being able to hear your voice can calm them down. Because loneliness can be, like we've said, can be temporary, can be situational, can be emotional, can be social, and can be chronic also. So we need to, and we're going to be talking about how do we deal with it, in some few moments, so that at least you know what you can do, what you can say, how you can support somebody else who are going through, who is going through this tough time.
Yeah. So there's 3 ways to deal with loneliness. The first is to reach out to others when you're lonely. The second is for other people to recognize someone who's lonely, who may be sitting isolated. It could be a senior, it could be a family member, and try and connect them. But there's another way, and that's internal. So my brush with loneliness personally was when I was widowed. I was incredibly lonely. And the loneliness was devastating. You can't even imagine when all of a sudden everything's taken away and you don't have that impact of being able to talk to someone. In my case, I loved being able to go to sleep at night and talk on the pillow, and I had no one to talk to. So I actually had to internalize my loneliness. And loneliness can be a blessing in some way, because if you think, say, of a desert, in the desert's all cracked and it's kind of miserable, but out of that desert comes the odd beautiful little flower or the wonderful cactus or something like that. So looking at loneliness from a place of solitude and having that inner understanding that life will be okay, that life can be okay. And it might mean just doing personal things like going for a walk, enjoying a tree, doing some mindfulness, doing some beautiful things for yourself, just baking something at home that's precious, or doing an art project. Being active and being able to do those things, those are some of the personal things you can do to combat loneliness. And out of that comes that lovely period of it's no longer loneliness, it's now just enjoyable, warm, heartwarming solitude.
So what you're saying in essence is that if we try to spin this stuff around, loneliness can be a growth process for us.
Very
can
so.
Get us to really understand who we are as an individual and see how we can come back stronger in helping people and feel love and feel connected.
And come back stronger together. COVID isn't going to get us. We are going to be able to absolutely cement our connections. And out of this, we're all going to understand we need to be connected, we need to be attached, we need to love, and we need to be loved.
That's
and
wonderful.
That's for loneliness.
That's wonderful. Now, as we just conclude, we want to just give some people some tips to know how to deal with loneliness. I know we talked about it before, just to wrap it up, is to be intentional. We've got to be intentional about life. That means know when you're feeling the edge, know when to take a break, and know when somebody else is struggling, so that you can reach out to them and have a meaningful impact in their
Sorry,
life.
Danny, I'm just going to cut you just because.
So, dealing with loneliness, then one has to be intentional. Not only focusing on yourself, but focusing on the other people. Looking at somebody, reaching out, maybe writing that letter, maybe sending that text.
Yeah.
It has to be intentional. Knowing that, and again, one thing even with intentional is that we need to be able to accept people's offer to help also.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people just have this tendency that I've got to give and give and give and give, and they don't learn to receive. Mm-hmm. Because in receiving, you are making the other person important too. Not that, because people think, it's a sign of weakness receiving. No. If somebody is reaching out to you, you've got to accept it and compliment their effort and build on it and build a relationship. And I think during this period of, when we were at home, the lockdown, I think that's what Sarah did. We reach out to our clients. Not only that, we reach out to staff. So we have constant staff meetings, check-ins, and you see people becoming open.
Yes.
Because you are not only giving. Now it's time for you to receive the care and support of your colleagues. So dealing with loneliness then means that you're intentional, you are growth-minded, and that you are grateful. Grateful for your life and grateful for other people too. So as we wrap up, it's very, very interesting that we need to learn how to invite people into our world. Reach out to others, engage them, but bring them in. Let them have that sense of belonging. Even if you are talking on the phone too, create that environment where they feel that they belong. That means you might have to do a lot of listening, to people. And sometimes in this period, sometimes we don't even know what to say or have something to say. People just want to rant. People want to talk about just anything. And we need to create that atmosphere for them to talk. And, it doesn't have to be too serious, but something that, people want to have their opinion. But we need to be very, very careful because people's opinion might be different from ours. The balance is key here. Just learn to listen to their story, invite them in. And, one thing that I would say is that learn to pray for people, and pray with them too. And I know, some people do not really believe in this, but I think it's part of dealing with loneliness, knowing that there's a creator that loves you and has put it in love into you to share with other people. So the love that you have received is the love that you need to share. And one of the ways to share that love is to make sure that people have that sense of belonging. Let people feel peaceful when they are with you, whether it's in person or on the phone. And now, as things begin to open up, invite them out. Go to the park, like you said. If you are going for a walk, try to find and include somebody else in your walk. Maybe you have other things to add to it that can be helpful.
Well, I think some people don't know or have the connections in their life. Some people, loneliness comes because you don't have someone you can talk to. So I just want to say, we're here at Sarah Riel. So at Sarah Riel, we have the warm line. You can call and you can talk to somebody, and you call anonymously. So it's a great way to connect so that you aren't feeling lonely. At Sarah Riel, we also have counseling and employment services. So you come in, our admission is online, and become part of the Sarah Riel community and volunteer. We have a Sarah Riel volunteer program running all through COVID so that you can give and you can be able to then belong and be a part of things. So, there are those opportunities, whether it's Sarah Riel or another organization. There are resources in our community that you can reach out to. We don't have to sit in loneliness, even though it's a very lonely time. We can be connected. We can attach. We can belong.